right? Your mindset, your process, your perspective, your risk management. Those are the only variables that you have full control over. But what happens in the market, how it decides to distribute outcomes, I mean, that's out of your control, right? So why sort of inject emotionality into it? It's completely counterproductive.
Sitting down today with Yvan Byeajee, one of the leading figures of trading mindset, trading psychology. Looking forward to talking with him about trading, but also kind of how to keep the right mindset for trading. So, Yvan, welcome back on the podcast. Good to have you here today, and pleasure to talk with you.
Excited to do this.
We had you in the podcast. I think it's been a few years. I'll link the episode below and in the show notes. People can check it out, but it's been a while. Tell me a bit more about what's been going on since we last spoke.
Same old, Etienne. I focus on the psychology of trading and my consulting work. And that aside, I manage a fund for myself and a small group of investors. And that's how I keep myself busy, essentially. Trading on the side, helping traders on the other side. And that's what I love to do. And so I'm excited to discuss these different topics with you.
Tell me a bit more about when you talk about developing the right mindset for trading, having the right set of mindset, the right thinking for performing well in trading. What comes to your mind first? Like, what's the most important key to this?
Perhaps this is a little bit unconventional compared to what other trading psychology experts talk about. But for me personally, in my trading psychology work, I really put a lot of emphasis on the embrace of uncertainty. I talk a lot about this because a big aspect of this game, of this trading game, is about embracing uncertainty. And to embrace it, you have to understand it to begin with, why it's there, how and why it manifests itself in the market, what it says about you, what it says about your strategy, what it says about how the numbers, work themselves out, right? Very, 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 very important. So a lot of people, they think they understand uncertainty, right? But they understand it theoretically, only conceptually. It's not soul deep understanding, and embrace. And that's some inner work that I think most traders should do to sort of get to this place where they have this soul deep embrace of uncertainty. So yes, to answer your question, I would say the embrace of uncertainty, very, very important.
How do you get comfortable with uncertainty? Because I feel like there's so many things that we cannot control as traders, and even in life in general, there's so many things we cannot really control. So how can you get used to not controlling these things?
Look, an analogy that I like to use is this: if you want to learn to swim, you got to swim more, man. You can't just pick up a bunch of books on swimming, watch a bunch of YouTube videos on swimming, and then call it a day. TikTok videos, right? And then call it a day. I'm not saying those aren't helpful. They're very helpful. They help you develop this theoretical framework, or it gives you the theoretical aspect of it, right? But then it's doing time, right? You got to jump into the ocean and then try again and then try some more. This is how you develop your embrace of uncertainty. This is how you build any skills, actually. It's really by doing. But the thing with most traders is that they're trying to get rich quickly, and this doesn't help. It doesn't help because it doesn't allow their self mastery to flourish, right? And so it's always this constant one step forward, two steps back. They're just not going anywhere because they're desperately trying to get rich quickly. And so to do well as a trader, to develop your embrace of uncertainty, you got to do the opposite of what 99% of traders do, right? You got to do what the 1% does, which is take it slowly, work on developing your skills first. And part of those skills is once again the embrace of uncertainty, the acceptance of uncertainty, thorough understanding of uncertainty. And once you get there, then you can scale up one step at a time, right? But once again, most traders try and get rich quickly, and it doesn't help.
Easy to say when you look at it that way, but for someone who's trying to make it, either they want to quit their job, they have this target in mind of I need to make X amount of dollar per month, therefore that's kind of they try to push for that kind of amount, right? So how do you put these pressures aside and kind of try to only focus on trading? How can you make that work?
Right. Well, that's very difficult because trading, I mean, it's such an interesting endeavor because it involves, money, right? And money, we have this sort of psychological relationship with it, right? It means so much to us. And so it's very difficult for most people to relax amidst the sort of random process leading to long-term, positive results, right? It's very difficult for people to sort of sit with themselves and embrace that process fully and stick with their edge and just let the numbers work themselves out. So there are no magic formulas to this. Once again, Etienne, and another analogy that I like to use is this: if you've never set foot in the gym before, you don't start bench pressing 4 45-pound plates on each side of the bar. You do this, you will hurt yourself. No, what you do instead is that you start small position sizes, small weights, small weights, and then slowly over time, as your muscles grow bigger, as your form gets better, you increase the weight one step at a time. It's this concept of progressive overload, right? And it's the exact same thing in the market. Small position sizes at first, and then you prove yourself, right, with small position sizes, and then slowly over time you increase it, you scale up one step at a time. Most traders don't operate like that, because, and it's normal. It's not a judgment. I was there myself, right? It's just an observation. I was there myself. I've been through this. You know I've lived this, right? And so there are no, there's not 1,000 ways to deal with this. The way to deal with this is to lower your position size and to work on just developing your skills first, and then over time you sort of get better. You get better at trading bigger position sizes, and when you're at a point where that consistency is locked in, where that composure is locked in, where you're trading bigger position sizes, I mean, the world is your oyster, really. There's no cap on the amount of money that you can make in the market. You can make a lot of money in the market in a very short period of time, right? And that's what's so appealing about it. But that's also the danger of it, because most traders are trying to get there fast.
You often talk about how mindfulness is what helped you to turn things around in trading and become profitable. Can you walk me through why that is and how mindfulness helps traders transform?
What mindfulness does is that it helps you develop your powers of awareness. And this is very, very important. And I always talk about this, Etienne, because this is very pertinent to this. I don't know if you can tell, but I speak with a stutter. I always have. It's been a challenge of my life, really. And if we had this conversation a few years ago, you would see that I won't be able to form a coherent sentence without repeatedly stumbling on each and every word, each and every sentence. It was really, really bad, man. Um, because the way my stutter works is that the more I stumble on words, the more I notice that I'm stumbling on words, the more I get emotional about it. And the more I get emotional about it, frustration, disappointment, whatever it is, the more this feeds the stutter. And it's this unending, self-reinforcing sort of loop, right? And man, it's the exact same thing in trading, right? It's if you're not aware, cognizant of your emotional state, your internal state, you're just repeating old patterns blindly. You're just reacting to stuff, right? And just you're building momentum in the wrong direction. So what mindfulness does, what the practice of meditation does, is that it helps you interrupt that pattern, not immediately, over time, right? It's a practice. That's why it's called a practice, because it takes a repeated practice, repeated seeing, repeated learning to effect your transformation. So once again, this isn't overnight, but once you develop that habit of just being with yourself every day, even 5 minutes a day at first. The science is very clear about this, right? Even 5 minutes is very useful. It's very beneficial, on in terms of the changes it generates in your mind. But if you're able to do that and develop this as a stable habit, I mean, you're slowly building momentum in the right direction now. Right, you're developing your awareness muscles. You're developing your capacity to be with yourself, your difficult emotions, right, without mindlessly trying to shake them off, right? Blindly reacting, right? I was walking, this always stuck with me. I was walking down the street. It's been a few months now. I saw this case of road rage. Just two guys getting out of their cars and just insulting each other, punching each other. I saw blood, coming out. I was like, wow, this is such an unproductive way of being in the world. There's no separation between you and what's happening with there's no sort of wisdom in how you deal with your emotions. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, these folks, they would make lousy traders, man. They would lose their money in the market because there's no, like, there's no emotional management, there's no composure, none whatsoever, right? You're just full on into your emotions, you're just blindly reacting. And unfortunately, a lot of people are like that. They don't know how to deal with their emotions, and that's what mindfulness does. It teaches you to deal with yourself, with your feelings, with your difficult feelings, with your discomforts, with your difficult emotions, and that's priceless in this uncertainty-ridden space that is trading.
So it's kind of like being hijacked, right? You're hijacked by your emotions, then you do something as a result of that, but you don't want to do that stuff, right? Same thing in trading. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people are gonna put mindfulness and meditation together as the same thing. Like, oh, you meditate, you being mindful. Are these two different things, and how can you start being mindful and practicing mindfulness?
Mindfulness is a quality of awareness. That's essentially what it is. It's a quality of awareness where you're not discriminating between the good or the bad. You're just being with experience as it is, as it's unfolding. That's what mindfulness is. Um, but meditation is how you develop that power of awareness, that certain power in the mind. This is how you develop it. It's through a practice like meditation. So you're forcing your attention, quote unquote, forcing your attention on your breath or one particular point or whatever it is, and you're developing your powers of focus, right? And when you're able to focus, when you're able to sustain that focus for longer periods, then you can sort of learn to be mindful with whatever is arising for you, whether it's your emotions, whether it's sights, sounds, sensations, whatever it is. So those aren't necessarily different. It's just, meditation is the practice to reinforce mindful awareness. That's basically it.
How would you suggest someone to start with that? Like, what are some kind of practice they can do for maybe 5 minutes a day, and how can they apply it?
The simple practice of focusing on your breath, that's very, very impactful, right? You just focus on your breath for 5 minutes. You take stock of what you're feeling. You observe the air flowing in and out through your nostrils, and you observe it as it is, right? Is it warm? Is it cold? Are there tingling sensations, throbbing sensations, whatever it is? You stay with that, and when you notice that you're getting distracted by thoughts or whatever it is, right? You bring you gently force your attention back to the breath, and you keep doing that over and over and over again. And over time, what you'll notice is that your mind becomes sharper, and your capacity to focus becomes it becomes stronger, right? And once you have that, that's essentially mindfulness of breath right there, right? And then you can take it one step further by you know training yourself to be mindfully aware of, once again, everything that's arising, whether it's your emotions or your thoughts. You can learn to observe your thoughts, what they are as physical phenomena, right? And once you're able to do that, it's very interesting because this raises a lot of existential questions, like, who am I? What am I? What is Etienne? What is this entity that goes by the name of Etienne? And look, I don't pretend to know the answer to these existential questions. I'm a seeker myself. I'm a student myself. But what I can tell you is that it's very important to ask yourself these existential questions, because most people, what's happening is that they're living externally. They're living, mindlessly, right? Blindly reacting to sensory inputs. And that's not a productive way of being in the world. And to be a trader, I argue, you have to be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more introspective, insightful about your experience as a human being. And that's how you get better at this game. And I know it sounds stupid like that to the untrained ears. It sounds woo woo, but it's not. If you really take a moment to sort of explore the topic, and that work is important, once again, because if you're a more thoughtful trader, by definition, you're a more rational person. And if you're a more rational person, you're bound to make better decisions in the market, very simply.
I think a lot of traders are in some way kind of high achievers. They want to get results. They want to see progress in their trading. And I think sometimes people in this manner kind of lack some self compassion. Like it's easy to be a bit too hard on yourself sometimes. How do you bring that self compassion back to trading and kind of accept that not everything will be perfect all the time?
Right. Well, it's there's a simple mindset shift that you can make. And it's this. Everything in life is either working on you or for you. Let me say this again. Everything in life is either working on you or for you. If it's working for you, you're getting results immediately. Bam, bam, bam. Great, amazing. If it's working on you, it means that, you're reaping losses, and that experience is teaching you something that you need to learn. You need to integrate into your sort of, model of the world. For you to become the trader, you need to be to get the results that you want, very simply. So there are no failures really. There's just learning experience, Etienne, Just learning experience through and through. And once you really understand this as a person, I mean, your life changes because you see things completely differently. Once you adopt the perspective that there are no failures, it's just learning experience. You're a completely different person once again, right? And you're in a much better place to learn. You're in a much better place to grow. You're in a much better place to become the person you need to be to get the results that you want. So simple, very simple mindset shift. Now it's very important to remember to actually do it, right? To actually think when you're going through something difficult, for instance, a bunch of losses, clusters of losses, let's say, just remind yourself that, okay, it might not be working for me right now, but it's working on me. It's teaching me. Anything that is bothering me, that is my teacher. And that mindset is very, very important because, once again, it changes how you live and experience your life very simply, more broadly, right?
What do you tell traders who want to set goals for themselves in trading? Like, what kind of goals can they set in the beginning and maybe also later on once they're profitable and they want to kind of keep things interesting in trading?
What's paradoxical about trading is that we're in this to make money, right? But at the same time, we can't be thinking about the money because if you're thinking about the money, you're not thinking about the game. You're not thinking about the process. You have this outcome oriented mindset, and that doesn't work very very well in this sort of dynamic field that is the market, right? Where the market is constantly distributing outcomes in a quasi random fashion, right? Win, win, loss, 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 win, win, win. But that doesn't really matter if your edge makes sense, if your risk reward framework is if it's divided thoughtfully, right? If it has an asymmetric nature to it, I mean, you don't need to be right to make money, right? You could spend. We have clients who spend their time losing, and but still they make money at the end of the day, right? It's because it's more this game. It's more about being right. It's more than being right. It's about sticking to a process, having that belief in something, right? Because it works, right? It works statistically speaking because you've back tested it, right? You forward tested it as well, and it's really sticking with it and just letting it play out, right? Taking your emotions out of it. Emotions and money, they're like oil and water. They don't mix well, right? So while inject emotions into this process that you don't have any control over, the only thing you have control over is your mindset, your process, and that's basically it, right? Your mindset, your process, your perspective, your risk management. Those are the only variables that you have full control over. But what happens in the market, how it decides to distribute outcomes, I mean, that's out of your control, right? So why sort of inject emotionality into it? It's completely counterproductive. So make sure that you're not focused on the money, on a specific monetary outcome, right? Just stick with your process and let the market give of its own accord. That's the only goal that you should be having, right? It's consistency, it's process driven decision. If anything, that's the only worthwhile goal to have in this uncertainty ridden space.
Do you have any rules on kind of what you feed your mind with for success in trading? I know like you could go online, like read about all the news and all the market stuff and whatever going on. How do you feed your mind to make sure you are performing well in trading?
So I really stay away. I know, I have a Twitter account. I'm pretty active on social media, especially X. But I don't spend a lot of time on those social media platforms. Etienne, I use some sort of software to schedule my tweets, and that's it. I'm never on social media, right? And so because I understand the importance of just um, uh, developing your own individuality as a trader, and not having your decisions get swayed by popular opinions, or by what's popular out there, what trader X is saying on Facebook, or wherever. So I really stay away from all those different social media posts, or whatnot. This is basically what I do. And what I also do is that have a pretty well-rounded routine where I wake up in the morning at 5 every single day, and I meditate, and have this thing with my partner where we don't talk to each other in the morning at all. And this is our time to just be with ourselves, and to just you know be with myself, and just cultivate that introspective mood before the market opens. And I put some classical music in the background. I sip some coffee, and that's basically my routine. No, it's calm. It's not a big deal, but it's very, very impactful for me, because it puts me in that right state of mind before the market opens, right? And that's basically it. And when the market opens, whenever I have an opportunity, whenever I have a trade signal, I take it. If I don't have it, I don't take it. I close my computer, and I come back the next day. I keep showing up like that with consistency, with process, and I let life, God, the universe, however you want to call this creative force that's there, I let it play its own role. Fate, right? I let things play out. I just show up with my best foot forward every single day like that. And that's basically what I do, Etienne.
Makes sense. I'm asking because I see a lot of people that compare themselves to other traders. They see other, like someone else PNing online, so therefore they want to have the same results, so they kind of want to try to compete. Or they hear the news and then they want to trade something because of the news or something happening in the world, and then that could cause over trading, or maybe fear, or even under trading or something, and that just doesn't work well with trading in general.
Absolutely. What I've noticed is that you really can't make it as a trader if you're following people, online. If you're following, trade calls, trade picks from this or that person. You have to develop your own personality. You have to learn to catch your own fish. Very, very important. I mean, this is crucial to your success, right? You have to develop your independence of thought. And once you're able to do that, I mean, good things happen.
I love it. Tell me if people can connect with you and find out more about your work after this interview.
So I'm present on social media. Just type Trading Composure, and you'll certainly find my handle there. And I also have a blog called tradingcomposure.com, and this is where you can find articles, and you can learn a little bit more about my coaching program. I work with traders very closely, me and my team, and we work with them in live trading, and we help them develop the behavioral patterns required for success in trading, very simply. And I'm available on YouTube as well, although I haven't published any videos recently, because I haven't had time for that. But those are the platforms where people can find me.
Ivan, I appreciate the time you gave here for listeners. Appreciate the advice you give also. A lot of good stuff for sure. We'll leave the link below. People can reach out to you and check out your work there. You do a lot of good stuff on Twitter, or on X, actually. Really cool stuff there. So a lot of good information, a lot of good value day to day all the time, which is really cool. And hopefully they can reach out to you there, connect with you, and see what you're doing out there.
Thank you so much for having me on, Etienne. It was great chatting with you, and looking forward to connecting again.